Can you turn things around with a girl who's losing interest, asks for space, or tells you that she's not sure how she feels about you? This is one of the most common questions I get from clients, and the answer is yes, but not by doing the things most people assume will work to get her back. In fact, the actions that stop a woman from pulling away and turn things around are often counterintuitive. In many cases, they are the exact opposite of what you naturally feel like doing. So, in this video, I'm going to give you 5 powerful tools to stop chasing her and instead turn things around so that she's chasing you. I'll cover all 5 strategies and provide real-world examples of how to use them to re-engage a woman and prevent her from pulling away. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio. After coaching many people who came to me in situations where the woman they like is getting distant or uncertain, I developed tools and techniques to help change her mind. If you've ever been in that situation, or you're in it right now, I'll go through 5 of these tools. The first tool is a mindset shift that counters your natural inclinations. If you're like most guys, when a girl starts losing interest, panic sets in, and you fall into what I call emotional quicksand. You might become desperate to prove you're right for her, confess your feelings, give her a gift, or plan some grand romantic gesture, but these often backfire. In another video on my channel, I discuss the 5 biggest mistakes guys make when a woman pulls away. In this video, I'll just stress that these approaches don't work, and you may have already realized that. So, the first overarching mindset or strategy is what I call the pullback. This move, which requires little skill to execute, taps into more psychological attraction triggers than nearly anything else. The pullback involves mentally and emotionally stepping back. This might mean texting or calling her a little less, or not reaching out for a couple of days. It's about reducing the frequency of communication and showing slightly less enthusiasm than before. Why does this work better than confessing your feelings or giving her a gift? It comes down to one principle of basic human psychology: the fear of loss. Even when we're unsure about what we want, the moment we sense we're losing something, a natural instinct kicks in. For us to want to hold on to something, it's essential to understand this. If a woman is losing attraction to you and you sense that something is different, we've all been there. This often happens because doubt has crept into her mind. Once that doubt arises, she starts focusing on all the things she doesn't like about you and all the reasons it might not work out, which causes her to put the brakes on. On the other hand, when she thinks she might lose you, the opposite happens. She begins to focus on your positive qualities again. This is a fascinating aspect of human psychology. We dislike losing something we already have. So the key takeaway here is that you need to eliminate her certainty about having you, because when she knows she has you, she feels in control. She decides when to hang out, how much time you spend together, whether or not you get physical, and how often you text. When she controls these aspects, your value diminishes in her eyes because she knows she has the upper hand. It's hard for a woman to respect a man who lets her be in control. Now, let's discuss some tools to take this feeling of control away from her. One thing I always encourage clients to do is create cognitive dissonance in her. But what does that mean? Cognitive dissonance occurs when someone experiences conflicting beliefs or attitudes, creating a sense of discomfort that they want to resolve. We've all experienced this at some point. Think of times when a woman's behavior doesn't line up with your expectations, creating an incongruency that can be unsettling. So how does this dissonance lead to increased attraction? As she tries to reconcile her perception of you with your new, unexpected behavior, that feeling of control she thought she had starts to slip away. She believed she had you figured out, and now you don't make as much sense to her. Let me share a real-life example from a client to illustrate how powerful this can be in reigniting attraction. My client was dating a girl named Chelsea who saw him as a typical nice guy. He was predictable and romantic, the kind of guy who probably wore his heart on his sleeve. She could tell he had likely been hurt before, and this led her to cool off in the relationship, asking for space and suggesting they just be friends. I worked with him to help shift this nice guy image. During our conversation, he casually mentioned he had been on a reality TV show a few years back, a show where multiple guys compete for the attention of women. In that show, he ended up kissing several girls on camera. I asked if Chelsea had ever seen the video, and he said no, insisting that sharing it would make her think he was a player and might hurt her feelings. I suggested that she needed to see that video because it would create cognitive dissonance for her. She had a solid image of him as a sweet, predictable, nice guy, but seeing him in a different light, bold and confident, would challenge that perception. However, I cautioned him against directly showing her the video. If he did, she might think he was trying to impress her or make her jealous, which would diminish the impact. Instead, I recommended that he have a friend post the video on his Facebook page as if they had just stumbled upon it. This way, she would see it without him directly manipulating the situation. When Chelsea saw the video, it threw her off balance in a positive way. Suddenly, she began to question her assumptions about him. Maybe he wasn't as nice and predictable as she thought. This mystery and unpredictability made her pay attention again, as she realized she didn't have him all figured out. That excitement is crucial because, in relationships, we don't want to be with someone whose story we already know. You might be thinking, "I've never been on a reality show," but that's not the point. The key is introducing two conflicting ideas into a woman's mind simultaneously. There are many ways to achieve this. Think about instances when a girl has done this to you, when you had one image of her, but then she did something so out of character that it completely changed your perception of her. That's what you're aiming for. To make this work effectively, you need to create a scenario where her expectations are challenged. You must have a clear understanding of what her perception of you currently is. If you're unsure, I'll include a link in the description to a free assessment I created, which identifies what I call your attraction profile. This assessment asks 7 or 8 questions, and how you answer them reveals how the woman most likely sees you right now. Having this information allows you to find ways to introduce some incongruency and cognitive dissonance, adding layers to your personality that may lead her to think, "Maybe I don't know him as well as I thought." You can find the link to the assessment below. Now let's move on to the next concept, which will be easier for you to understand: creating a triangle. If you've read the book The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, you know he discusses how powerful this triangle can be. This tactic actually worked wonders for the same client I just mentioned. After we created some cognitive dissonance, the next step was to add a sense of urgency to the relationship. Chelsea was pulling away and beginning to feel too secure, taking her time deciding whether she wanted to fully commit. When a woman feels she has all the time in the world to make a decision, her interest starts to fade. So I advised him to create a triangle. What does this mean? One of the recommendations I made was for him to take his mind off Chelsea and start socializing more. He joined a local hiking group that met every Saturday morning to explore a nearby mountain, something he was genuinely interested in. As luck would have it, he found a woman in the group who was fun to talk to. To be clear, he had no romantic interest in her, but her presence in the group meant he would often engage with her, and she became part of the conversation when he spoke to Chelsea. Now, if he had tried to make Chelsea jealous consciously, it probably wouldn't have worked and could have backfired. She would have seen right through it. But since this interaction was natural and part of his life, it worked. Here's one of the most important things to remember about women. It's far better for her to make her own assumptions about you rather than for you to tell her what to think. Women rarely believe what they are told, but they often believe their assumptions. Women have a sixth sense when it comes to other women. The moment he casually mentioned the girl from his hiking group, Chelsea began to zone in on that information. She started to wonder, is he interested in this new hiking buddy? Even little things, like him posting a picture from the group where he stood closer to this girl, made a difference. He wasn't even touching her. He was simply standing near her and expressing excitement about the hike. Chelsea, seeing him looking forward to Saturday mornings, made her a bit nervous. Was he excited about going hiking, or was he more excited to see this girl? As these thoughts crossed her mind, she began to wonder if she was losing her grip on him and if she no longer had control. We stumbled into this triangle strategy as a way to encourage him to get out of the house and meet new people, but it worked perfectly. I often explain this concept to guys because many express discomfort with the idea of playing games or being inauthentic. The truth is, you only have to play games when you're sitting at home, obsessing about a girl and waiting for her to text you. If you're out there living your life independently of her, you won't have to force anything. These opportunities will naturally come your way, just like they did for my client. The only thing you need to consciously avoid is trying to comfort the girl. As I mentioned earlier, this might feel counterintuitive. My client was concerned when Chelsea started to get jealous of the girl in the hiking group. He wondered if he should stop going to the group, which is a natural inclination. We want to eliminate tension or uncertainty for the girl. However, that uncertainty and tension actually draw her in, and it also creates urgency, because now she starts to realize that she can't take all the time in the world to decide if she wants him or not. She could lose him because there's now a little bit of competition, even if it exists only in her head, and that motivates her to step up her game. I remember him telling me that he was meeting Chelsea after one of his hikes, and she showed up dressed in a sundress, her hair and toenails done, clearly trying to impress him. This was a change from how she had acted for a long time, because suddenly she was more invested in the relationship and eager to spend time with him, which shifted the dynamic in his favor. Keep this thought in your mind. How can I create a triangle with her? The next thing you can do to turn the tables is something I call attention straying. If you've been giving her too much attention and constantly making her the center of your world, imagine there's an attention dial. Up until now, when you're with her, that attention dial has been at a 9 or a 10. It might be time to dial it back to a 5 or a 6. This ties back to our earlier concept of the pullback. Attention straying is all about gradually reducing both the quantity and quality of the attention you give her when you're together. This technique makes her feel a little less secure, sparking a sense of urgency and curiosity in her mind. What's going on? Something feels different with him. We've all experienced this feeling with a woman when she's still nice to us, but we sense that the attention we're receiving has been dialed back a bit. That's the feeling you want to create in her. Here are some ways you can start implementing this concept. Check your phone. More often, not in an obnoxious way, but just enough for her to notice that you're not completely absorbed in everything she's saying. Excuse yourself for calls. If your phone rings, don't just take the call in front of her. Excuse yourself and go into another room to take the call. Let her wonder what's so important that it pulls your attention away from her. Engage with others. When you're out with her, start conversations with other people, whether it's a quick chat with a bartender or a longer conversation with a friend. Let her see that you're not solely focused on her. Make her wait a minute or two while you finish your conversation. This can create a sense that she's not your only priority, increasing her desire to get your attention back. A lot of guys might be afraid to do this, but I was recently reminiscing with my friend Rob about some of the old dating coaches and pickup artists we used to know. Rob shared a story about meeting this legendary pickup artist named Zan, who had incredible game. They were at a bar in New York, and Zan was with a supermodel. Rob had never met Zan before and had his full attention. He thought the model would lose interest since Zan was ignoring her. But later, he looked over to see Zan making out with her in the corner. She didn't leave or get bored. In fact, Zan's lack of attention made her want him even more. She saw him as a high-value guy who didn't need to fawn over her, which motivated her to work harder to regain his attention. Attention straying is a subtle way to shift that dynamic and keep her on her toes. Here's a powerful mindset shift technique that can completely turn the tables, especially if you find yourself constantly seeking a woman's approval while noticing that she's giving you less and less of it. This shift is from being screened to doing the screening. Here's what usually happens when a guy senses that a woman is losing interest or pulling away. As I mentioned, we've all been there. We panic and try harder to gain her approval. We want to prove ourselves and live up to her standards. But the truth is, this only makes you seem more desperate and lowers your value in her eyes. Instead, you need to flip the script and start screening her. Counterintuitive, I know. Screening is about subtly shifting the dynamic so that she feels like she's the one being evaluated. It's not about being harsh, obvious, or judgmental. It's about casually bringing up your values and interests in a way that makes her wonder if she measures up to your standards. So, how do you screen a woman? First off, and this isn't just for this situation, but in general, it's essential to be aware of your own values and interests. You need to be clear on what you value in a girlfriend, whether it's intelligence, spontaneity, ambition, kindness, or something else. Knowing what's important to you is crucial. Once you have a grasp of your values, you can start weaving them into conversations naturally. For example, if I love reading and learning new things, I might mention a book I recently finished. I could say something like, "Oh, I just finished reading *Sapiens*. It was fascinating. I learned so much about humans and history." After sharing a bit about the book, I could then ask her, "What's the most interesting book you've read lately?" This question encourages her to think about what she can share that would impress me. Many women might not have read anything since college, leading them to respond with something like, yeah, I haven't really read anything in a while." You can acknowledge this with a light-hearted, "Oh, really?" and then move on without scolding her. Another example could be asking her, "What's the most spontaneous thing you've done recently?" This prompts her to reflect on her experiences and try to impress you. For instance, if I'm passionate about charitable giving, I might say something like, "I like to donate to charities, especially ones like Make-A-Wish Foundation, where kids with illnesses get to experience something memorable." It's important for the parents to see their child so happy and create lasting memories. Then I could ask her, "Do you donate to any charities, volunteer anywhere, or believe in any causes?" This inquiry subtly demonstrates that you're screening her, asking if she aligns with your values. The key here is subtlety. You're not interrogating her, you're casually slipping these questions into the conversation in a natural way to gauge her alignment with what you're looking for. When you ask these types of questions, the goal is to make her feel that you're genuinely interested in whether she meets your standards. This creates a shift where she starts focusing on proving herself to you rather than the other way around, thus altering the power dynamic and making her more invested. When you combine this with the other tools we discussed, it becomes extremely powerful. With a triangle in play, cognitive dissonance at work, and your attention being pulled away, she begins to question whether she meets your standards. This realization prompts her to think about whether she is good enough for you, which is precisely where you want to be. Additionally, it shows that you're not desperate for her approval, which is incredibly attractive. Now she's not just considering whether you're good enough for her, she's also contemplating whether she's good enough for you. One of the most powerful things you can do is eliminate the subtle mistakes you might be making. Most of us are unaware of these mistakes, often because we have a certain attraction type in mind. As I mentioned earlier, we form a vision of what it means to be an attractive guy when we're with a woman, and we carry this vision from middle school into adulthood. We tend to do certain things because we believe these actions will win her over. To help with this, I created a 7-question quiz that identifies 7 common situations in relationships, dating, and flirting. The way you answer these questions pinpoints where you fit into this attraction profile, highlighting your mistakes and how to fix them. It's completely free. You can click the link in the description, answer the questions, and receive your custom profile with a plan for improvement. I recommend taking this quiz because most guys are completely oblivious to the mistakes they're making. Click the link, take the quiz, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment to let me know what you found most insightful and if there's anything you'd like me to explore further. I know we covered a lot quickly, and this video is already over 20 minutes long, but if there's a specific technique you want to hear more about, let me know in the comments. I can expand on it in a future video.